Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating framework from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, their Financial Literacy Curriculum Guide. It's essentially designed to take high schoolers who might not know a credit score from a high score and turn them into financially savvy young adults. So think about this for a second. What if you could learn the actual rules of money before you made your very first major financial mistake? Seriously, think about the stress or the debt you could have avoided in your own life. That's exactly the kind of preemptive empowerment this curriculum aims to offer. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to break this down into a 4-step journey. 1. Designing financial literacy. 2. Practicing financial responsibility. 3. Understanding income. And 4. Decisions for tomorrow. Let's get to it. All right, kicking things off with step 1, designing financial literacy, the 18-week blueprint. Now, what's really interesting about the architecture of this program is just how massive and structured it is. We're talking about a full 18-week semester guide, cleanly divided into 6 main topics. It systematically builds from the ground up. You don't just jump straight into complex investing. No way. You start with the absolute basics of financial responsibility, move right into money management and budgeting, and then eventually you're tackling credit, debt, and advanced risk management. It's like this perfectly sequenced staircase leading right up to financial independence. Moving on to step 2, practicing financial responsibility, building the foundation. This right here is the core content statement. And really, it's all about one thing: accountability. Students are immediately taught that managing money isn't just about having cash in your pocket to buy what you want today. It's about holding yourself accountable so that your future self isn't stuck paying the price for your current choices. It sets up a totally powerful, lifelong mindset right out of the gate. And to really hammer this home on day 1, students play this fantastic pre-test game called Keep the Currency. They pair up, answering true or false questions about credit cards, debit cards, even buying a car. And this game brilliantly illustrates a fundamental and honestly often surprising rule of wealth. Avoiding poor financial decisions and just holding on to the money you already have is just as vital as earning it in the first place. People lose so much money purely because they just don't know any better. This game stops that leak right at the source. Still in this foundational first week, students dive into an online module called Invest in Yourself. Because, before they ever invest a single dollar in a stock or a bond, they need to learn that their own human capital is their absolute best investment. Just look at these factors: competencies, commitment, work ethic, attitude. The curriculum explicitly connects the dots for them, showing that their training and education decisions literally dictate their future incomes and job opportunities. They realize pretty quickly that they are their own best asset. All right, let's hit step 3, understanding income, the reality check. Now, this is where students collide with the real world. The curriculum introduces this highly relatable fictional character named John Doe. So the students figure out John's gross pay by multiplying his hourly wage by the hours he worked. Sounds great, right? But then comes the classic universal student aha moment, the absolute shock of seeing all those taxes and deductions taken out, leaving a much, much smaller net pay. It's a harsh rite of passage for sure. Finally realizing that your gross pay is basically just a polite suggestion of what you might actually take home. But hey, let's move along and see how this builds. Because the curriculum doesn't just drop that tax shock on them and walk away. It empowers them to actually handle the paperwork. Students learn to calculate that net pay and literally fill out a sample W-4, a 1040 federal tax form, plus state and local forms. It directly takes the intimidation factor right out of these real-world financial documents. Diving a bit deeper, they learn that a W-4 isn't just some random HR form you hastily sign on your first day of work. No, it is a crucial federal document that dictates exactly how much of your money is withheld for taxes. Understanding this whole process, along with dependents and exemptions, puts the student firmly in the driver's seat of their own paycheck. And they don't stop at basic taxes. The curriculum introduces students to pre-tax voluntary deductions too, things like flexible spending accounts and healthcare savings accounts. So why does this matter? Well, because understanding these specific deductions can strategically shrink a student's future personal tax liability. They're actually learning totally legal, incredibly smart ways to keep more of their hard-earned currency. Next up, we hit the Rule of 72. It's this surprisingly simple math trick used to estimate how long it'll take an investment to double based on compound interest. But here's the kicker. The curriculum presents it as a double-edged sword. Compound interest, it's your absolute best friend when you're saving, but it is your worst enemy when you're in debt. It is such a fascinating way to get students evaluating the true risk versus reward of borrowing money. Which brings us to our final section, Step 4, Decisions for Tomorrow, Long-Term Strategy. Now, reconciling a checking and savings account sounds incredibly unglamorous, right? But the crucial point here is that it's a vital, non-negotiable survival skill. In this segment, students have to manually organize and enter information into an account register to figure out the actual balance. They learn exactly why maintaining flawless records is the absolute bedrock of avoiding bounce checks and those devastating overdraft fees. As they navigate the world of financial services, the curriculum hits them with a very real-world comparison. It explicitly calls out alternative financial services. We're talking payday lenders, auto title lenders, pawn shops, check cashing stores, and prepaid cards. The students are actually tasked with analyzing the true and often totally exorbitant costs of using these alternatives versus traditional banks and credit unions. It's an absolutely essential lesson in spotting predatory lending from a mile away. Building on that whole consumer protection vibe, the students then tackle rent-to-own contracts. They break down the specific nuts and bolts of these agreements and meticulously compare the final, total cost against just buying the goods outright. They learn to spot the hidden, long-term costs buried in these contracts. It's a huge light bulb moment when they realize that what looks like a super low monthly payment to get an item today is very often a massive financial drain in the long run. Finally, we reach smoothing the path, which really pulls the whole shebang together. The ultimate takeaway here is profound, but it's simple. Properly balancing your debt, your income, and your savings means understanding that every single financial decision you make, no matter how small, carries a very real long-term consequence. So I want to leave you with a slightly provocative thought. Looking at the sheer depth of this curriculum, from tracking pennies in an account register all the way to analyzing rent-to-own contracts, ask yourself, are you currently practicing the financial literacy our students are learning today? Honestly, it is never too late to go back to the basics and build your own blueprint for financial independence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.